Can Bob Chesney keep the JMU Dukes train rolling? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. For some reason in my mind, I thought we were going back and forth through the divisions. What, to my surprise, we weren't. We kind of did the Texas State and the Cajuns first, and then threw in App State because I was going to do Southern Miss today. But then I realized that wasn't the case. So let's do JMU today. Okay. And JMU is the prototypical example of today's college sports landscape. All right. Curt Cignetti had built this program to the top of G5, top of the Sun Belt. Some would say, for lack of a better term, they're getting screwed because they couldn't play in the Sun Belt Conference Championship or the playoff if they got that far. They got game day down there, although App State beat them. It was quite a run for JMU over the last couple of years at this level, right? And they had just gotten to this level, but they've been here only a couple of years. And we all know that they agreed to not be championship eligible or either Sun Belt or national championship. We've had that discussion. But because Curt Cignetti, now in his case, he takes a Big Ten job and goes to Indiana for a huge payday. And goodness gracious, they lost, I think, 17 players, and 13 of them is the point. 13 of them went to Indiana. We're going to find out how good a coach Cignetti is if he's playing with 13 guys that went to JMU, now are going up against Ohio State and Michigan. But it is the prototypical thing. Now, what we saw differently here is they didn't hire a up-and-coming assistant coach. They didn't go get the John Summerall from Power 5. They didn't get the Jared Parker from Power 5. They didn't hire from within. They went out and got a big-time college coach, but a coach with a ton of experience in Bob Chesney. And he is obviously rebuilding on the fly. Starting with the quarterback, Dylan Morris, out of Washington, who has some experience, but obviously was sitting behind Penix Jr. for a couple of years and led them to the national championship game. And so here we are. JMU still has these high expectations, and I'm not sure if they're fair. All right. I'm sure. You know what? I counted the guys coming out. How many guys are coming over? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So 24 in, 17 out. This is according to, take it for what it's worth, Colton Poole, herosports.com. I went to another site and they didn't even have Jordan McLeod leaving. So take that for what it's worth. So that's a huge turnover. 24 new guys and 17 old guys out. That's a big turnover there. And, can you keep it going? And the thing is, outside of App State, and we've talked about this, I think, in other episodes or maybe in the Schultz cast. But, who can keep up, right? Because Coastal Carolina's got the same quarterback and coach coming back. Old Dominion's got the same coach and quarterback coming back. You know who doesn't? Georgia State. You know who doesn't? Georgia Southern. You know who doesn't? Marshall, we think. And so there is room for, I don't think the bottom is dropping out of James Madison at all. I'm also a big fan of Bob Chesney. If you've been paying attention to the channel, I was actually watching Bob Chesney before JMU hired him. Syracuse was about to hire him. The word was, take it for what it is. I'm certainly not that well sourced anywhere, but even the Orange, someone didn't want an FCS coach. All right. So again, Fran Brown's been doing a great job recruiting. We'll see how that translates. Not even a coordinator, a position coach for Georgia, became the head coach. And then Chesney ended up taking the JMU job, which I think he's going to do a fantastic job. This is going to be a transition year, one way or the other. That's what I happen to think. That's what's going to happen here for JMU. But usually in transition years, there's a little bit of a drop off. Now, you look at, you look at the standings. JMU is 7-1 in the conference, just losing to App State, 11-2 overall. And so how much drop can there be? And the second loss was to Air Force in the bowl game with no Signetti. So I'm not sure, I don't think we're looking at a 7-5 season, right? A 9-win season would still be really good. And you'd probably be contending in the Sun Belt. I got to get my directions right. East. You'd still be contending for that. So, and everyone's just got to get used to everybody. But it seems like to me that James Madison is that. Give me an example of what college football is going through, and it's JMU. Although in this case, think of all the coaches, right? Mike Desmo didn't have any, I don't think, head coaching experience, maybe high school, but certainly not at the college level, right? Jared Parker didn't. John Summerall didn't. Ken Womack didn't. Del McGee doesn't have any. Tim Beck didn't have any. Bob Chesney comes with over a decade worth of head coaching experience, and he's the guy who, had to do the laundry and cut the field, and I don't know about put the lines on the field, but he was doing everything. Now he just has to coach football. Well, now you got to deal with the portal and the NIL, so that's different duties than he's doing before, but it's not exactly manual labor. So I think he keeps the train rolling. It may not be going full speed here in 2024. All right, so let's take a look at some of the guys when we come back. The transfer report of Taketh and Giveth. And we'll see if we can combine that with who is expected to be key contributors for JMU coming up. And please, in the comments, let me know what, I'll drop this, you people may know in Harrisonburg. All right. All right. We will do that after I tell you about FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. All right, so let's look at the JMU. I got the JMU transfer tracker again from Colton Poole on Hero Sports, and I'm going to combine that with our lads' depth chart. All right. I know they may not be the most up-to-date potential, but we're going to go with that. And they have a lot of key guys that are transfers in, in the two deep. I mean, there are 8 players who transferred in out of the 24 that are in the two deep of the offense. They got another 7 players who are in the two deep of the defense. And obviously, you start with the quarterback, and that is Dylan Morris. He's going to big shoes to fill. Got to replace the Sun Belt player of the year, and Jordan McLeod, who went to Texas State. Dylan Morris comes in, does have experience, played sparingly last year behind Penix at Washington. Did play before Penix got there, did have issues throwing interceptions in his first full-time year starting, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He is he's expected to be the starting quarterback. Now, running back, again, this could be like a 3-headed monster. Again, our lads has 3 guys, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get these pronunciations right, but they could be rotated anyway. I'm sure that could be the case. Ayo Adai, redshirt senior transfer, Tyler Purdy, redshirt senior transfer, and George Petway, redshirt freshman transfer. So you have a young guy coming in, and again, they could be rotated as you see fit. He came in, Ayo Adai came in from North Texas. Tyler Purdy comes in from Holy Cross, so he's very connected to Bob Chesney. And George Petaway, he came in from North Carolina, so that's a pretty good get for Bob Chesney. You do have a couple of guys. Well, you got Cam Ross, redshirt senior. So they got a lot of experienced players transferring in. Cam Ross is from UConn. A wide receiver expected, to start in the slot. And then you got a redshirt senior, Pat McMurtry. Also out of Holy Cross, offensive lineman. Big kid, 6'6", 298 pounds. And he is expected to start at right tackle. You got a couple other players. Also in the two deep, Nakai Poole, wide receiver, redshirt freshman. Jesse Ramiel, redshirt junior, and Hunter McLean, redshirt sophomore, also in there as well. So you got a lot of guys that are expected to play that were in the transfer portal offensively. Defensively, the front seven is loaded with transfer guys. Terry Lockett, another redshirt. Well, he's a redshirt junior. Transfer in. He's expected to be the starting defensive end. You have DJ Cotton Jr., defensive tackle, youngster, redshirt freshman. You have Eric O'Neill, redshirt junior, the stud, the jack, whatever you want to call that, kind of moving back and forth kind of position. The, guy kind of standing up with his hands not in the ground, so to speak. And Jacob Dobbs is your weak side linebacker. He's a redshirt senior. So you do have a lot of experience mixed in with a little bit of age. Backup nose tackle, AJ Abassi, a redshirt junior. Lloyd Summerall, a redshirt senior, is the backup stud. It's a great name for it's the star, it's the jack, but the stud's a great name for that position. And Raymond Scott in the middle linebacker is a grad transfer. So there is a ton of experience. And the question is, how quickly can that experience come together? That's the big thing, right? And so when we come back, we will go over the schedule and see, are these expectations legit, right? Because they have the same over-unders as the Cajuns 8.5 and Texas State 8.5. That's a high number. It's a high number. Can they win 9, or is 8 the right number? I kind of think 8 is the right number for the Cajuns. They're going to have to get off to a good start, right? They're going to have to get off to a really good start. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll talk about that JMU schedule and should expectations remain high at least for 2024. I probably could have. Well, it's a good clickbait topic, right? All right, when we come back, we will do that. Let me tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's check out that JMU football schedule. They do start on the road at Charlotte, and it is on ESPNU. They get Gardner-Webb at home as their home opener. The following weekend, they get a week off, and then they're at North Carolina. That's a very interesting schedule, because they could, I presume they're not going to lose to Charlotte. Let's see if Charlotte, and they rebound last year because they were not good a couple of years ago. I'm certainly not keeping track of Charlotte. But a couple of years ago, they were not very good. The reason I know that is because the coach that Mark Hudspeth took over at Austin Peay, who did a good job at Austin Peay, went to Charlotte, and they were not good. Charlotte was 3-9 last year, 3-9 of the year before, and 5-7 in 21. Did they play in 20? That's a COVID year. 2-4 in the COVID year. They didn't play very much. See in 19. So they have been. That was their last winning season. Was 19. They were 7-6. So it's been a minute since they were very competitive. So you got to believe they're going to start out 2-0, right? They'll beat Charlotte. They'll beat Gardner-Webb. We presume North Carolina is going to be favored in that ball game, but not keeping up with North Carolina. They're replacing Drake May. And I don't think North Carolina was all that hotty-toddy last year, to be honest with you. Even as a Patriots fan, I'm not the highest on Drake May. I hope he's good. But App State took them to overtime, could have won that football game. They were 8-5 last year. They just were not, to me, they just weren't all that great to me. But that could be a me thing. So that could be a very winnable game for JMU. They have two games, if you will. I don't want to call them exhibitions, but they'll be favored in both the games against Charlotte and Gardner-Webb. They win those two games. Let's see who North Carolina start off with. I was kind of surprised. App State's getting Clemson, thinking that Clemson would have a cakewalk to begin with. No, they get Georgia. Let's see who Carolina starts off with here. They're starting off with Minnesota and Charlotte, oddly enough. So that'll be very interesting. They're actually starting on a Thursday, getting Minnesota in Minneapolis. Then they get Charlotte. Well, that'll be an interesting comparison for that matchup. So, obviously, they'll be scouting that ball game pretty tightly. Then they get Ball State at home. They could be 3-1, could be 4-0, right? They could beat North Carolina. They're at ULM. That's always tricky. All right, but we'll put that down as a win for now. Is that 5-0? Then they're taking on Coastal Carolina. That's at home. Put that down as a win. That's on ESPN2. At Georgia Southern. I'm going to give Georgia Southern the benefit of the doubt there. Then Southern Miss at home and Georgia State at home. Boy, those should be wins. You're at Old Dominion, at App State. Those are not necessarily easy ball games. And then you do get Marshall at home. That 8.5. Now we kind of know why it's 8.5. All right. In terms of expectations should remain high, yes. They are trying to, the Cajuns are kind of building half a stadium, if you will. They tore down the press box and they're going to put in a whole new side of the stadium, which is going to basically look like, I think, JMU's side of the stadium, or a modern version of that, right? Where the other side of the stadium, where JMU has it, does look like kind of Division III or high school. And they're looking to upgrade that and increase capacity, which I would slow the roll. Don't go too crazy, right? Make sure you keep that demand up is what I'd say. All right. And it's important to keep the demand up compared to maxing out a couple of times a year, if you do get that chance. So I think the expectation should stay high. We'll see how good they are, because if they go into Carolina and beat Carolina, and I don't care how good Carolina may or may not be, but if they go in there and beat Carolina, sky's the limit, right? They'll be favored in almost every game after that. Let's see. They'll be favored against Ball State. They'll probably be favored at ULM. Not by much, but they'll be favored, especially if they're 5-0 or 4-0. They'll be favored at ULM. They'll be favored at home against Coastal. Georgia Southern, well, depends on what Georgia Southern is, but they could easily be favored by a couple of points. They'll be favored against Southern Miss and Georgia State at home. Depending on what Old Dominion does, right, they could be favored in that one. Probably not going to be favored at App State. They'll be favored against Marshall. So just looking into it, they're going to be favored in 10 out of their 12 ball games. 9 out of the 12 ball games. And depending on how they do and how the other teams do is going to determine the rest of the way. But it's now we know why they have an 8.5 win total, because where are the 3 losses coming? Carolina, at Georgia Southern, at App. Now you need a 4th loss to not get the total. So so that's going to be tough to pick against JMU. And again, I'm a big fan of Bob Chesney. I think he's going to do a great job. It is a year of transition, though. And, we've been talking about the mass exodus for the Cajun softball team that lost 5 players. Indiana has lost, or JMU lost 17 players and 13 of them to Indiana. I mean, just brutal. At least, though, in that case, Kurt Signetti got paid. We're still trying to figure out why Jerry Glasgow took maybe the worst Power 5 softball job in America. Trying to figure that one out. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please, any of the comments, any of the guys, I didn't pronounce your names right. If you guys know more about the depth chart than JMU, than our lads, please let me know, and we can happily correct that moving forward. But we'll keep on doing these kind of preview of the previews. Phil Steele's magazine should hit the newsstands. I saw someone had it yesterday. We'll go pick one up and see if we can get Phil Steele to do one. If you can't do it this week, we'll probably skip next week because it's holidays. Maybe when I get back to Lafayette. We are in humidity-free Central New York right now, so that's pretty cool. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We are up to 1277. I need 3 more subscribers per day. Just per day. Maybe a little bit more. I'm doing the math. So as of yesterday, I needed 3 per day. So to get to 1,300, and then we're doing 100 a month in July and August. So we are pushing the subscribers to get to 1,500 by August 31st. It would be a big help. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll talk to you again on a Wednesday. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.